So it's time to put the midsection of our nesting baskets together, and I have my trim blocks laid out. These are blocks A2, A3. This is the B2 left and the B3 left, B2 right, B3 right, C2 and C3. So this is the 3 row, this is the 2 row. So we'll just start by sewing these together and these together. And we'll do what we call pin matching. So we'll put them right sides together, and we're going to find a match point. I always start with the corner. So I put a pin directly in the corner, comes out right there, and across to the opposite block, right in the corner. So once that pin is in, you pinch it, take a second pin and pin your fabric. So I do corners first. Pinch it so it's nice and tight. So you'll notice our cut edges aren't going to line up, but that's okay. It's we want the stitching to line up. So this is how you'll do it. Then I'll find a place in the middle to mark, so I can see a stitching line right here. That's where it is inside the block, and it's going to line up with this one right here. Pinch that. Take a second pin and pin it. And I might do one more here. So I've got the same little line right there. Match it up to this one. So once I get these two blocks pinned together, I'll pin these two together, and the same with these two sets right here. So we'll get those all pinned, and then we're going to stitch right along the basting line. So I usually drop my needle right there at the corner, do a couple of back stitches, and then come forward and stitch it right on the basting line. And then I end it right maybe about in the middle of that seam allowance, do a couple of back stitches, and that's how we'll stitch them all. So we'll come back when that's done. So my 2 rows are stitched together and the seams are pressed opposite each other. So one row I press the seams this way, the other row I press the seams this way. So now we're going to sew these 2 rows together, right sides together, and we'll do our pin matching just like we did on the block. So I'll do that and come back with this stitch together. So this is my lining. This is my finished stitched piece. All my seams are nicely pressed. I'm going to cut my lining out the exact same size as my finished piece. So let's talk a little bit about the lining. This is going to be the very bottom of my nesting basket, like this. Your lining will be inside of here, and you can choose to do an optional embroidery in this middle section right here, which is what I've done. I've embroidered the Hoop Sisters logo, so it'll end up being at the very bottom of my basket, right in the center. So here's my lining, completely embroidered, optional. I marked the center, and I also marked the 1/4 inch on each side. So what you'll do is you'll take your block B1 right here. This is actually A1 and this is C1. So it's A, B, C. It's a little bit backwards. This is wrong side up. All of these are wrong side up. So we're going to take B1 and we will flip it. I put a pin in the center of B1. So I'll line that up with my center mark on my lining. Basically just lining up my raw edges. And then I'll take the A1, flip it over, and I'm going to align this edge with my 1/4 inch mark. So hopefully you can see that. That's lined up with the 1/4 inch mark. They're going to overlap a little bit, the A's and the B's. Right here, that's fine. These lines, this is your basting line from your embroidery, they should line up. Then we'll take the C black, we'll do the same thing, flip it over, line it up with the 1/4 inch mark at the end. And it too will also overlap the B block. And the basting lines should line up. So I'll take this to the machine and I'll stitch from this end onto the basting line all the way across to this end and do just a little back tack at the ends. And then we'll come back and we'll repeat that with the number 4 row at the very bottom. So I've got them stitched, and when I flip them up, I should have my 1/4 inch on each side, and I do. So now we're going to repeat that for this opposite side. So this is my B4 piece, and I did pin mark the center, and I'm going to flip it so that the lining side is to the lining side, lining up with my middle line that I marked earlier. We'll pin that one. This is my A4. Flip this one over, lining that up with the 1/4 inch. The 1/4 inch line here, I want the edge of my block to be right there at that 1/4 inch line. And your basting line should all meet each other. And then this is our C4 piece, same thing. Flip it up, 1/4 inch extra fabric on the end. So I will get this pinned all the way across, and I will stitch it from this end to this end, following the basting line and doing a little back stitch at each end. So here's my finished lining piece with my sides, or my ends actually, all attached. So now we're going to take our embroidered piece that we just finished putting together, and we will place it right sides together, This is actually my A2 block. This is my A1 block. So I've got my A's. With my A's, my B's, and my C's are all in the same columns. It's just so that your quilting will line up. And now we're going to pin all the way around. So I'm pinned all the way around. I've left this part open because that's where we're going to turn it. It's in the center of one of the longer sides. It doesn't really matter which side you do. So I put a pin like that because I'm famous for closing up openings and then having to take them back apart again. So I'm going to stitch right on the basting stitch. I'm going to pivot right there. I'm going to make sure that I've got my little side pieces out of the way inside here, because that's where our little side pieces are. So I'll just push them back, line up my raw edges, and then stitch right on the basting stitch along the side. Just making sure I don't catch those pieces. Pivot there, so all the way across, and repeat on this side and ending here. So we'll do back stitching beginning and end. So we'll come back when that's done and then we can turn it right side out. So let's turn it right side out. So there we go. We'll get it all pressed. We will press under this edge right here, and then we'll talk about top stitching, the final top stitching, and putting in the stiff stabilizer to make it more stable when we come back. So my piece is all pressed. Now I want to put in a little bit of a stiff interfacing product. This is Timtex or Peltex, and we have two, one for each side, and we also have one for the bottom. I like to do the sides first. I'll just put it right through that little opening right there and feed it right up into the end. And then I'll put this one in. Get it right up into the corner. We don't want to have it in the seam, in the folding area. We want to get it pushed all the way to the edge. So now that the sides are in there, I'm going to stitch in the ditch right along here to hold those in, and then I'll slide in my bottom piece. So my stitch in the ditch is done. You can see it right here and right here, and it folds up very nicely because it's away from the actual folded area. So now we'll slide in the very bottom piece of our interfacing right up in there. And I'm going to tuck the seam allowance around it. Just tuck it in just like that. And I'm going to edge stitch right along this seam right here to close it up. And then so that it matches on the other side, I will also edge stitch over here. There it is, completely finished. I've done all of my edge stitching around the center. I can fold this up very easily because there's no bulk in the seam. And this is how you put your box together, your basket together. You'll fold your B end in first, fold the slotted ones up, and then take this and weave it through the bottom slot into the top slot. And one end is finished. Repeat, B end in first, or the handle end goes in first. So there we go. Isn't it adorable? There's our handle end, our side, our other handle end. The bottom is beautiful, and it's got nice firm sides.